Join the conversation live and share your thoughts of the show in our chat room at www.kcorradio.com.
It's as simple as that.
Now, back to your constitutional freedom fighter.
Now you're putting the whole station in jeopardy.
The master of provocative insight, Dwight Lilly.
Yeah, that's Dwight Lilly back here. And what a fascinating journey down the rabbit hole we're having tonight with James Morcan from Sydney, Australia. You know, filmmaker, producer, activist and researcher. And I think the last term, researcher, is really important because he has really dug in. And there's so much to cover as we started talking that it's impossible to cover all of this in one show, but we're going to try to spend the next half hour on a couple subjects, the Vatican and the British royalty. So go ahead, James. Which one do you want to hit on first?
Well, I think they tie into a few sections there, but just to summarize in case people are tuning in now. So I believe all my research shows and some tip-offs I've got and so on is there's a secret world economy. And this is important because we're all being told there's not enough money to go around, we can't invest in that, blah, blah, blah. But yet we've got these issues like we were discussing with the Federal Reserve. That's a privately owned institution. Maybe all the money they're collecting, not all of that's going back into the U.S. economy. Maybe only, maybe a lot of your tax-paying dollars are going offshore. And then the Vatican is another one where their wealth goes right back to what you call the black nobility, were the elites of Rome way back then. So they've been collecting everything, and they've been even the gold from what was collected from the Nazis. What was collected from the Jews that were captured in the Holocaust and so on. Then you've got the Queen and the Windsor family. Now, some people have estimated, and keep in mind with what we're about to discuss here, the richest man that I've kept up with lately on the Forbes rich list, which keep in mind are only ever estimates. The official richest man is only worth 90-something billion, and I think in the last few months for the number one position has been switching between Bill Gates of Microsoft and Jeff Bezos, founder and CEO of Amazon. So they're in the 90 billions, okay? But I believe besides the Queen and the Vatican and these elites, like the European banking elites, like the Rothschilds and so on, I believe the greatest confirmations of this secret world economy, for want of a better phrase, I believe is in Asia. And it goes back to World War II. Now, what happened? What happened was Japan was collecting gold and all the wealth. The Japanese Empire was very vast, equivalent to bigger than what the Nazis had in terms of landmass. They conquered so many nations: China, India, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, you name it. They had that whole of Asia virtually, except down here, Australia and New Zealand. We were lucky because of you guys were down here defending us. But so they had that whole Asian empire, and the Japanese empire was collecting golden riches of a scale that's never been done in history. And some of these families, if you go back to the Chinese dynasties, the Thai dynasties and so on, they had collected these elite families riches for thousands of years. So when the Japanese came in and got all of that, okay, that was wealth off the scale. And the story is, there's a tale called Yamashita's Gold, which sounds like something out of a Clive Cussler novel, but I'll get to the facts in a minute about that. But Yamashita's Gold, what they were doing is the Philippines is very close to, and they had conquered the Philippines. And that's why General MacArthur was in there trying to, he was leading the contingent to try and free that area, okay? And Yamashita's Gold was stored in the Philippines, preparing for transshipment via the submarine and shipping routes back to Japan. And so what they would do is they would store all these treasures, and then when they were ready, each lot would go to Japan to fuel the whole empire. But the problem was, as the war went on and the Allies became stronger and stronger in the Pacific, those shipping routes became in doubt. So they had to bury in the Philippines most of the riches. Okay. Now, again, to me, it sounds like, even as I say it, it sounds like something from a, like a B-grade treasure movie. But you've got the person who was in power for the longest in the Philippines after World War II was Ferdinand Marcos and his wife Imelda Marcos. So they're famous, infamous, whatever you want to call them. There's lots of stories about them. But in recent years, there's been confirmations, and the Philippine government have made it, of not only late discoveries of Yamashita's gold still buried in caves and so on that locals find, but that the Marcos family has bank accounts in Switzerland mostly, because Ferdinand Marcos is dead, but Imelda and her clan, who are still a political dynasty in the Philippines, have it's been confirmed by the Philippine government that they've got all sorts of bank accounts all over Europe. And there was one, and these total trillions of dollars. I am not kidding. And this has been confirmed by a whistleblower from the World Bank called Karen Hughes. Your listener can look up her and see what she says. But there's more confirmations than that. I'll get to that in a minute, and how that all ties into everybody, how this ties into everybody in the world. But what I was going to say is, if there's a BBC interview with Imelda Marcos where she shows one bank account, a Belgian bank account, and it's in her husband's name, and she shows it to camera. This is a proper BBC interview, and it's $987 billion, and that's just one. That's just one bank account. So that would mean,
oh my God,
for people not good at maths, that's 10 times what Jeff Bezos and
Bill
who's the other guy? Bill Gates, yeah. So they really, by comparison, and that's just one of their bank accounts. Now, and of course, I have received tip-offs of this, but I've also done my own independent research. But I never take something as a conspiracy fact until you're all the way there. I always play the devil's advocate, even with JFK. Maybe Oswald was just an incredible shot. Who the hell knows? But there's been more and more confirmations lately. For example, the current president of the Philippines, who's been nicknamed the Trump of Asia, Rodrigo Duterte, has confirmed that Imelda Marcos is going to be giving back some of what he calls ill-gotten wealth, because this gold was in there and the Marcos family just grabbed it, right? And it should have been full of Philippine people, or maybe it should have been returned throughout Asia. But he confirmed that she would be returning it. Now, one report said in the tens of billions, but there was a mainstream media report in Asia that said 300 billion. Now, I would ask you, well, how is it possible that this family has got 300 billion? And by the way, this family, there's many families all over the world where I believe this is the real global elite. And the Marcos family is just one example of this. Okay, it's not to say that this is all just in one family. I believe there's many banking elites and all sorts of people all over the world who are in the trillions of dollars in wealth. But the other confirmation, okay, was there was recently a news report to say that the auditor for the Vatican confirmed that there was and he was recently fired, by the way, because he wanted to do a full audit of the Vatican. And just like the Federal Reserve, there's never been a proper and comprehensive audit of the Vatican Bank. And anyway, this auditor confirmed that there was a huge sum transferred not long after World War II from Asia to the Vatican Bank, and it was known as Operation Golden Lily. And Operation Golden Lily was the joint CIA Marcos run, what would you call it, gold collecting mission to get all this wealth. And this is just so to tie all this together, I believe this is just one example, and there are many examples all over the world of vast sums of wealth that could free up the world if released. And there is a school of thought, and from some of the people I've come into contact with and my own research, I believe, for want of a better phrase, there is something, and this is a bad phrase, I can't think of a better one, but I call it, there is a good elite. So there are people at a very high level that are actually trying to fight to release money to the people. And there's actually a bit of a war or a battle up top between those elitists who want to keep it all amongst themselves and the people who actually want to free all this for humanity. So I don't believe in the general conspiracy theorist idea that it's us against the evildoers. I believe there's good and bad people in the common people, and there's good and bad people in the global elite. And so if any of those things I've just talked about are true, and I'm very sure on many of them, and people can do their own research, and I believe there will be more and more through Asia. If people follow Asian news in the coming months and years, there'll be more and more to confirm this, and through the Vatican as well. Then if any of that is true, then if we have a secret world economy, then that's possibly the biggest crime ever conducted.